Are you seriously suggesting, sir, something sinister sounding, circumstantially surrounding some scissors?
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is
Morning Somewhere!
for August 21st, 2024.
What was that?
But it is Bernie Burns sitting right over there. Her flight has been canceled. I'm turning myself down as opposed to the music. To one of those mornings.
Welcome to morning, everybody. Look, it's Wednesday. That means that you've made it halfway through the work week. Congratulations to you.
Do we have those work weeks? Is that a work week that we've got?
I mean, you know, you've made it 40% of the way through the work week. At lunch, it'll be 50.
What do you prefer? Do you prefer starting a week on a Monday, like calendar-wise? Starting on a Monday or starting on Sunday?
I prefer starting it on Monday because then weekend makes sense.
Yeah. I think the only reason we would have any preference for starting on a Sunday is because that's just what we grew up with, and it's hard to shake stuff like that sometimes. Hard to shake it, actually.
Hard to shake it.
Yeah, but I don't see any reason not to start a week on a Monday. Although every time I run into a Euro calendar where they start you on a Monday, it just throws me off. I get mad at it irrationally.
Accidentally look at the wrong days. Been there, pal.
Yeah.
So the drop this morning is related to the first thing that I want to talk about today, which is...
First of all, how are you doing, Ashley? Let's get a litmus test.
Oh,
Let's
a
see how
litmus
you're doing.
test.
An update on you. How are you today?
I think I'm all right, but now I'm suspicious.
No,
am I
just
all,
asking.
am I all right?
No, you're fine. I'm not hiding anything. Don't worry.
Yeah, Gamescom is going on, so we'll have a couple of things that we can mention as that goes. But I wouldn't say I've been following it that closely. Seems like so far a light-ish Gamescom.
Civilization 7 was announced, a February 11th release date.
Well, that is exciting. I mean, we did know that Civ 7 was coming, but it is good to have a date.
Launches on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch. I don't know how you can develop for all of those platforms a game like that at the same time, but they're doing it somehow.
I believe they also showed off a little bit more of the upcoming Indiana Jones game and may have gotten a release date for that, so I'll see if I can find it.
You know, I have to say, Civilization is a beloved franchise for a lot of like older gamers. Like it's been around since I have friends in college who didn't play games that played Civilization. And it used to be like a take on Risk. That's how it felt like. It was like a world domination
Digital
thing.
Risk.
All the little clips are showing, you know, and they want to show, of course, stuff they're doing that's new. It looks almost like City Skyline or Sim City now.
More of a city builder. Interesting.
Yeah. You're a lot closer than I associate with Civilization, but they got to show it. Otherwise, Civilization kind of looks like you're playing Google Maps a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it is one of those games where trailers don't always do it favors. They can't really convey the experience of playing a game like that like just one more round.
Right.
That's this really infamous with, I feel like Civ in particular, where you're like just one more and then morning comes.
And there's
right.
little animations they do. Yeah. Like the Phalanx versus the Legionnaires or whatever. And they show them battling each other one by one. And then you can zoom in all the way down to where you can see the little individual guys fighting. You do that once, and then you're just like,
and
just
then you
tell
go,
me
that
who won.
looks really cool. And then you back it all the way out so you can see where the emergency is.
Yeah.
You always play it all the way zoomed out. But trailers for that kind of game, they do like to show you, look, we can do detail. And I'm like, I appreciate your detail, but don't bother. Just zoom back.
You get over it really quickly. But they got to show that kind of stuff in the trailer, so it makes sense to me.
Speaking of games that are zoomed out that you play from above, Bernie, Peter Molyneux is back. He's back.
Are you a big Peter Molyneux fan? Because you talk about him, I feel like, a lot. And I feel like a lot of people wouldn't even know him, but they know some of the ridiculous stunts he's pulled over his career.
It's hard to say. I have, you know, like when you are like young and there's formative personalities, right? Like,
right.
I would say he was, when I was a younger gamer, one of those formative personalities. Games like Black and White was a really big one for me. Before that, you know, he did.
Did you ever have a furry phase?
No.
You? No.
No, I did not.
Because you
have
play
a furry
like
face.
gigantic, like anthropomorphic
That's
animals.
really not what you do when you play Black and White. You basically pick up the gorilla's poop or whatever and you throw it at him or you slap him around a little bit. It's a very weird game. Very weird game.
Okay. Now I'm completely lost. What do you do in this game?
So not in this game, not in the new game, but in Black and White, you basically play a god, but you have this giant animal who
Like an
is
animal
your
god.
Yeah, no. He's your like representative, right? So there's your god, you've got the hand. And then there's the giant, like there's monkey or there's a cow. And I want to say there was like a cheetah. Those were like the three that you started with. Those were the options. And so you have them and you can raise them to be good and to help the villagers when they're in need and, fill the grain silos. Or you can raise them to be evil and mean and slap the villagers around and throw them and chomp on them and put them in the ocean and all kinds of things.
So you're a god that's raising a kaiju that's raising villagers.
Yes.
You
got it.
Sounds like a fever
got
dream.
it.
I feel like I just explained it and I still don't understand it. I know less now at the end of this conversation than I did before it.
So I've always had a soft spot for Peter Molyneaux because he was so good at that god game genre. He then, of course, went on to do Fable, which was a fantastic game, very well received. Bernie, with your hand up.
He
Go
also
ahead.
started with Populous, right? The original god game.
Yeah. So he's like the guy. And then as the Fable games continued, they got a little bit weirder in terms of the big promises that he would make.
True.
And then break. Fans of the Black and Whites, we've already been there. We already know that you take what it comes out of his mouth at, grain of salt, right? Like he promises big things, doesn't always deliver, but what he does deliver is, aside from all the other things he promised, a good product in itself, right? Like Fable was a good game. Fable 2, great game. I loved Fable 3. So maybe a hot take there. Maybe I'm not representative. But then he left Lionhead, right? And then what was the game that he made?
Welcome to the Peter Molyneaux podcast, by the way. What's the new game? What is he making?
He's making a game called Lords of Albion. Does that sound familiar, Bernie?
It does. Why? Why does that sound familiar?
Because Albion is the world that Fable takes
Right.
place in, but this isn't the Fable world of Albion. This is another world of Albion that
This
this
is in
takes
the
place in.
AGU, the Albion Gaming Universe, basically.
So this new one that he's got going on it seems like kind of a return to the God game genre, but it also, I watched the trailer and it reminded me a lot, Bernie, of Fortnite. Not the Fortnite as you know it today, but Fortnite, the original game that they were making.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember what that was?
Yes, you built a fort and then you went out at night, which is where the name comes from.
Right. Then at night, the monsters would
Right.
come and you would defend your fort. So in this game, it looks like you create a village, maybe multiple villages. I'm not entirely sure yet, but you can determine what the villagers eat and what they wear, and you make the buildings and you manage their town. And then at night, the monsters come out and you send a hero out to fight the monsters, and you can control the hero, which is where it feels a little bit more like Black and White. Step into the world of the god, right?
Yeah.
But it's like the Fortnite. I mean, maybe you would consider it more of a like tower defense genre.
What's your favorite version of that? The whole like build a fort, get ready for enemies, and they come and attack you.
Favorite version of that. It's not a genre I play a lot.
I think the
What
people
comes
who
to
did
mind
it
for you?
7 Days to Die. I think they did it better than anybody else, and it's nice to have that clock running of the 7 Days to Die. With the harvest, blood moon, or whatever, the blood harvest fest, or whatever they call it, which happens every 7 days. Blood moon, I guess.
I would say the game that I spent the most time on where something like that happens is probably Don't Starve.
I always wanted to like DayZ, and I just could never get into it. It was ridiculously complicated. But maybe after PUBG, I could go back and play DayZ. We'll see.
Maybe
We'll
give
see.
it a go. Maybe
Yeah.
give it a go.
The funny thing about Fortnite to me is if the Xbox achievement system, they have this really weird rule where they can't get rid of achievements, or they can't change achievements after the fact, and they can't retire stuff. Like there'll be achievements that are in your list, like on Sea of Thieves, or stuff in a game mode that's been retired now for over a year, and you just will never get those achievements. They'll always be locked on your thing. Fortnite's the best example of that. If you go to Fortnite today and you look at the achievement list on Xbox, none of those achievements make any sense for what that game is today, because it's a completely different game.
Does that game mode still exist?
Save the World? No. It does not exist anymore. It's gone.
Wow.
Yeah, they retired it entirely. So Fortnite has made a complete pivot to Battle Royale completely, but it's even beyond that.
Yes. So just following up on another thing really quick, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is coming to Xbox December 9th, and they did also announce that one's going to hit PS5 in spring of 2025.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Well, we were talking about the work week earlier when we started off talking today.
yes, we did.
In financial news, the stock markets are kind of all paying attention today to the jobs report that is coming out, which will show economic jobs data for the last 12 months. And the last jobs data is what kind of sent the market into a short little tailspin, which it had then had another like mini rally to recover from. So all eyes are on that today. When I was looking at this, I discovered an interesting thing that I didn't know about, which is jobs data from China. There's now a rising youth unemployment problem in China that they always have these interesting sayings when you translate them to English. They sound so strange, but there's a generation of kids they're calling the rotten tail kids, which sounds so strange.
Okay.
And it's basically a term they're borrowing from rotten tail buildings, which is used to describe the tens of millions of unfinished homes that have plagued China's economy since 2021. This is from a Reuters article. I just found this. I thought this was interesting. The jobless rate for the roughly 100 million Chinese youth aged 16 to 24, it's interesting to have jobs data on 16 to 24-year-olds, crept above 20% for the first time in April last year, when it hit an all-time high of 21.3% in June of 2023. I don't know exactly how they measure it, and they actually, officials abruptly suspended publishing that data because of the effect that it was having to reevaluate how the numbers were compiled. In the U.S., jobless means you're actively looking for a job and you can't find one. If that's what that means in China, that's really interesting to me because 21.3% of people being out of work is crazy high.
Being out of work, but looking for work. And this is specifically that young demographic. So is that how they name their generations? We've got the millennials and they've got the rotten tail kids.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too, because we were talking about generations a little bit yesterday, and those are just American terms that we use, right? Like
Right.
baby boomers and things like that. Do the rest of the world, do they just, I never hear anyone else talk about generations. And if they do, what are the UK generations? What are the European generations? Do they use the same terms that they use in the US? I don't think they do.
Well, look, why don't we use this platform with an international audience, Bernie, and say, hey, guys, what do you call your generations? Please let us know. We're very curious.
Also, if you're outside of the US, and you probably have seen this before in either media or just anecdotally online, when someone flexes their biceps.
What do you call that?
They say, welcome to the gun show. Do you know what that's referencing? Do you know what a gun show is? It's a very specific American thing that we all see on billboards, but I'm curious if Europeans know what it is.
So before we get too far away, I do want to go back to your drop from this morning because it's very relevant to something happening in current events. In Japan, there has been an incident at an airport, Bernie. 36 flights were canceled, 201 delayed at a Japanese airport on the weekend.
Even the flights to Albion? Actually, I want to bring you back around to Pierre Molyneux. So what happened after he left Lionhead Studios?
Hey, get back here. So in this airport, this pair of scissors went missing from a store near the boarding gates.
What?
So basically, they shut the airport down. They canceled a bunch of flights. They sent...
Why were they selling scissors in a store in the airport?
I don't think it was a pair of scissors for sale. I think it was the store's scissors.
Oh, that makes way more sense.
And they sent a bunch of like passengers out. They all had to retake security checks. It was this huge mess over these missing scissors because they didn't want someone to steal the scissors, take them on the flight, and then cause an in-flight incident, right? They found the scissors, Bernie. Do you know where they found them?
Oh my God, where?
In the store.
They were just in the store. Somebody misplaced them.
An employee found them.
I would love to know where they were in the store. That's too funny.
I've got to assume like someone's apron. But here's the thing, Bernie. This is such a thing that could happen. We know this because you and I have both had cases where we start looking for our phone when it's in our hand or in our pocket. And we go, where is this thing?
Yeah, but no flights get canceled when I do that, you know?
Not that you know of.
Not that I know of, at least.
Not that you know of.
We do end up late a lot of places because I'm looking for like my hat, which is on my head or something like that. My keys that are in my hand. See, do women do the thing that guys do?
The
like,
pat? No.
You don't have pockets, so you don't do the pat. Like
No.
I can just touch my body and do like a quick inventory. Like it's so fast. Just pat. Like I tell you right now, I've got glasses and my keys to the car. That's what I'm patting. I feel.
I have my handbag, my purse, and I just have to hope to God that one of the kids hasn't been in there and looted the thing.
I know, it's the worst.
When I'm running out the door. Because if I assume that everything I need is in that bag, because if I need it, I don't take it out of that bag. If it's gone, that's it. I'm on my own.
I have probably talked about this before, but the first time I ever lived alone in my whole life was when I was 38 years old. That was the first time I ever lived by myself.
Because before that, you'd had roommates or girlfriends or wives, so on.
Prison sentence, yeah, the whole thing. Cellmates. It was amazing to me that I could put something down in my apartment and it stayed there. Like, it didn't go anywhere. If I put something there, it didn't move until I moved it again. That was an incredible feeling, and I don't know why it was such an incredible feeling.
You know what, though? I think it's really valuable for everyone, if they can, to live entirely on their own, at least for a little while, because there are a lot of things that you don't know about yourself until you live alone. One of those
Are
things,
you listening, Teddy and JD?
one of those things is, how messy are you? Because a lot of times it's something that you really legitimately do not know, because if someone else is in the house, you can blame messes on those other people, right?
Right.
Or if something goes missing, someone else took it. That's just a thing. When you live on your own, you suddenly realize that all these messes are yours.
Or, to look at it in a humble way too, you also realize like what other people are doing for you on your behalf. 'Cause
Well,
suddenly those
look
things
at
go
you,
away.
you little optimist.
Because
Yes,
suddenly
that's
those
true
things
as well.
go away, yeah. And so you realize how much you have to do on your own. You're like, oh, you appreciate like that. There was somebody else who like hung towels and things like that.
Made sure they were hung up or changed out the toilet paper or bought paper towels.
Can I talk real quickly? Is it going to offend you at all if I mention like a former relationship or ex-girlfriend?
Does it involve Peter Molyneux?
No, it doesn't involve Peter Molyneux. No. I couldn't take any more Peter Molyneux lore today. But I think about this sometimes. One of the rituals we have is we make our bed every morning. Like, that's something we have to do. And that's something I pick up from you. Normally, I wouldn't even care, honestly. If I'm the one going back in the bed, I really wouldn't care. But you like to make the bed, so we make the bed every morning.
Yes.
Right? Even on days when you get up ahead of me, I try to make the bed because I know you like it.
It's very sweet of you.
And I'm going to ask you about a thing. Like, there was someone that I was in a relationship early on in life, like in college, but after college. Anyway, I'm worried someone's going to listen to this and think I'm talking about them. They had a specific rule, and this is going to sound strange. Have you ever heard about this before? You're not supposed to make the bed when it's still warm. Have you ever heard that?
I've never heard that.
It's weird, right? Like, she was like, we can't make it. You have to let the bed cool down, and then you make the bed. You can't make a bed while it's still warm.
I assume that has something to do with then like keeping the heat in, and then the sheets won't be cool when you slide into them at night.
No idea.
I don't understand that one.
Have you ever heard, this is not related to this, but related to bed stuff in general. Have you ever heard you're not supposed to put a hat on a bed? Ever heard that?
Nope.
Yeah, me neither.
What's that all about?
I don't know. It's like a thing with some people. It's a really bad luck to put a hat on a bed. It's referenced in a David Lynch movie too, like Wild at Heart. You don't put a hat on a bed.
Maybe that's because it's already in your hand and you're looking for it.
Right. You end up with a rotten tail. Well, what else is going on in the world? Can we talk about our friends back in Austin?
We may.
108 degrees yesterday. My group chat from my friends, my college buddies, Scott, I think, was the one who sent this out, was 108 degrees, and it said on the alert that it felt hotter because of the humidity. And JD told me that there's a stat out right now that since May of this year, 99% of Americans have received a weather alert for heat. Since May of this year.
For heat or extreme weather?
Extreme weather. Sorry, thank you. It's extreme weather.
Which is still crazy that,
I just said heat
that it's
because
now
of Texas.
affecting everyone.
Yeah, if you work in real units, that's about, 43 degrees? So
Yeah.
44, almost 44 degrees. See, I got to say, too, I've said this before. I think Fahrenheit for, like, human temperature is better. Like, when you hear it's 108, that's 8 degrees over, oh, shit. Like, you get to 100 degrees, you're in oh shit territory, and you're 8 degrees above that. 44 degrees, really, I don't think it doesn't communicate that to me, you know?
Well, that's not, you're right, but that's sort of not what Celsius was made for.
No, it's made for scientists boiling water.
Right. It's just a nice, tidy measurement. That's all it is.
I love mills, and I love, all the metric measurements. It's great to convert stuff. Like, when we were doing this woodshed project, and you have something that's like 12 meters and people will write 1200 millimeters, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's kind of cool. You know what I mean? And you kind of know instinctively when people are doing that. Celsius to me is not instinctive. And it might be that I was born with that thing, but basing something on when you boil water, what temperature water boils at, it's the one temperature you never have to measure because water just boils when it hits 100 degrees, and it doesn't change from 100 degrees until it's done boiling, and that's it. Water stays the same temperature until it's done boiling. You literally never measure that temperature, ever. I've never seen anyone boiling a pot of water for pasta, and they got a thermometer.
I'm not sure if this is 100 yet.
Yeah, just like, we do a trick here because of the better voltage in the UK, where when we go to boil pasta, we just fill the kettle with water, boil it in the kettle, and then pour it in the pot. Water boils in like 2 minutes. Like you can get water for pasta going so fast here.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And then on the other hand, Europeans are like, you put water in the microwave to boil it?
Yeah, that's
you
American,
monsters.
That's an American
Such
thing.
an American thing.
Well, if you were living with 110 volts, you would put it in the microwave.
You know what I'm really into these days is grams. So cooking recipes here in the UK, in the land of metric, they instead of like it's a half cup, whatever, it's this many grams of something.
Right.
And I actually like that because the same amount of something will weigh the same regardless of how much air might be inside it.
Okay, wait a second.
Does that make sense?
No. Why would that not be the case with ounces?
Ounces, yes, with weight, but a lot of most American cooking recipes are not in ounces for things like flour or sugar, right? It's half a cup.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
But if there's more
they give you
air
volume
in the flour
versus
yes,
mass.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So if you're saying I need, 50 grams of flour, it will be the exact same amount of flour every single time. And I think that's cool.
Right. I do love too. It's like that on the extremes, they just kind of give up too on recipes. Like in American or imperial recipes, you literally get down to a pinch. Just a pinch.
Just a pinch.
Whatever the hell that means.
What is that? Pinch. You know who's a really big fan of grams?
Who's that?
Peter Molyneux.
Stop. Do they use an Albion? Do they use metric? Or do they have their... Did he invent his own system of measurement?
I think it's measured in chicken kicking.
Hey, just to wrap up on some things we talked about before, too. Looks like Disney has now agreed to allow the lawsuit to go to court after all this incredibly terrible PR that they got for telling someone they had to go to arbitration because they signed up for a Disney Plus free trial. Now that case is going to go to court.
Yeah. So it sounds like, so what they said is we believe in, humanity basically, and this is a real tragedy. And so we're waiving our right to arbitration and we'll take this in court basically. It was a very PR statement.
I would imagine the actuaries and the PR people got together.
That thing was so massaged.
That is probably the new best example of the Streisand effect. Any predictions? I predict they're going to go to court and immediately settle. Like they'll start the proceedings of like the early stuff, the pre-trial stuff, and then immediately quietly settle.
I think they'll do their best to prove that they weren't liable and try and get kicked out of the suit and basically leave the restaurant on their own. And if they can't do that, settle as quickly as possible.
That's like YouTube. It's like, oh, we have all these crazy illegal things going on our platform. That's the people who make the videos problem. That's not ours. I mean, we make half the money, but that's their problem, not ours. So the speculation, too, about Disney deciding to go to court was they were in an interesting position where if they were enforcing this forced arbitration and then that became part of the case, they could lose the enforceability for their end-user licensing agreement in total.
Yes, and I'm sure that they didn't want to risk that over this as well.
Yeah, the precedent would be set that this caused problems, and there's points at which they will probably need that for things that are actually relevant to the streaming platform.
Yeah, and they figure we can go without this, so they're dealing with it in another way. All right, well, that does it for us today. Any other things to talk about, Ashley, today on Wednesday? They announced Borderlands 4, the game, not the movie. And it put into perspective for me a lot of things. We discussed after Borderlands came out and was kind of getting hammered critically that Randy Pitchford sort of went on a bit of a Twitter bender, as it were, and was blocking a bunch of people, was very upset about the whole thing. It was already understandable for a creative mind, but it comes much more into context now that Borderlands 4 has been announced. Probably what they were hoping for, right? Is this movie's going to come out and it's going to have this buzz and this hype and everyone's going to be really excited for Borderlands, and then Gamescom is going to come. We're going to announce Borderlands 4 and it's going to be incredible. And then Borderlands, the movie, came out. And if anything now, Borderlands 4, the game announcement, is tainted by Borderlands, the movie's performance, and it's actually dragging it down as opposed to boosting it up. And so suddenly a lot of things... I was like, oh,
makes sense.
Okay.
And why wouldn't you have an emotional reaction to that? He's a human, right?
Sure, of course.
I mean, you can all imagine what it's like if you have like a 10-step plan for like this incredible synergy to build this zeitgeist, and step one of the plan just face plants, you know, and takes the whole thing down. I totally get that, man.
Yeah, so I totally get that.
We forget sometimes these guys, you know, they have a lot of success. They build these huge projects, big companies, but at the end of the day, they're human and they do like dumb things online. Just stay the fuck away from social media.
Yeah. And
not everyone is Peter Molyneuniverse.
And I gotta say, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a couple of Borderlands games that I've missed, but I do have a soft spot for Borderlands. Perhaps you and I can go on a couple of dates in Borderlands once again, since that's how we dated at first.
A Borderlands 2. That was how we remote dated, was via Borderlands 2.
We were in date from home before work from home was even a thing. All right, well, before we go, I do want to say thank you to today's sponsors, Chad and Jonathan Hall. Thank you both for sponsoring this episode of the show at patreon.com/morningsomewhere.
And don't forget to tune into our Patreon, where Ashley will have her 6-part series on the lore of Peter Molyneux. All right, well, that does it for us today, August 21st, 2024. We will be back to talk to you tomorrow. We hope you will be here as well.
Bye, everybody.